thank you for all our supporters and those who are logging in right now. Make sure you do your part and share this video. Like always, we have people that come on here that share their stories. And let me tell you, over the last couple years, there hasn't been a guest yet that I have not grown from or learned or been able to apply some knowledge to my personal life, my professional life. And that's what the Black Podcast is about. It's about making sure that we take the knowledge and that we leverage it, that we share it with our people, we share it with our communities, we apply it to the businesses and professional life that we have. So make sure you're doing your part right now in sharing this video. Tag somebody, tell them to get on. Your support is truly appreciated. And that's how we continue to bring guests on here to share their stories. And again, you never know who's in your circle that may need to hear the stories of our guests, because it gives us hope. It gives us the knowledge that we need to move on and grow as a community. So please make sure you do your part. I am one of the co-hosts, Dr. Sherelle Hobson, and everyone knows that my background is in athletics and in education. And my partner here is my partner in crime. He's out there in the country in Mississippi, but he is on the social work and psychology side. And, when you combine those two, we're talking about the same student. We're talking about the same person that's coming from our community. So please make sure that you not only watch this show, but go and look at our organization. We are HSBA, and learn more about why we're doing the things that we're doing here on the Black Podcast.
Yes, indeed. And I'm not going to belabor you and go too much into myself. Like Dr. Hobson mentioned, my background is in psychology and social work space, really focusing in on human behavior, understanding why people do the things that they do and how they can change the things that they do to be able to get out of life what they actually desire out of life. But today we have a public educator in our midst. And one of the things that you'll learn across the U.S. when it comes to public education, there is a broad spectrum on quality. There's a broad spectrum on the way instruction is implemented. And you're going to get various different types of results depending on where you go across the nation. So as we like to say, we are not a monolith when it comes to the Black community, and how you see an academic institution ran in Mississippi may be completely different than how one is ran in Oregon, so on and so forth. So we are eager to hear from this young lady that we have before us. I love to not dig too deep into our guests before they come on, because I want to have a genuine reaction and just a genuine vibe whenever they do come on. So without further ado, we have before you Miss Julia Rich. How's it going?
It's going very well. Thank you all for having me, and good afternoon, good evening in some places. I know I got some folks from the East Coast tuning in. So over there is the evening. Is a good 4:00 over here in Denver. So how are y'all doing?
We are
Blessed.
doing great. We're doing great. And we're just excited to hear more about you. And we
I'm
want to make
excited
sure
as
that we
well.
respect your time. And so we're going to dive right into it. And we
All right,
know
awesome.
that behind every glory is a story. And
Right,
so we
right,
want to know, let's start from the very beginning, where you're from and kind of the
right,
dynamics of your family, how you grew up and what that experience was like for you.
right. So going all the way back to I am a proud 80s baby. I was born in DC, raised in rural Virginia. I know that no one has heard of this place, maybe not, but it's Kilmarnock, Virginia. I'm very proud of where I grew up at. I feel as though I had a very grounded upbringing. My parents did a wonderful job raising me, which is why I attribute a lot of my success to just the upbringing that I had with them, being held accountable, being spoiled a little bit, but also, just having a vision for what I wanted in my life very early. But not necessarily knowing how I was going to get there. But, just the consistency around whether it was going to church 7 days out of 7 days of the week, or, my parents always exposing me to things through vacation and just opportunities from YMCA, just different things. My parents always made sure I had opportunities. And so, my upbringing, I'm just proud of it. And it just really has kept me grounded. One thing, so I hear when you talk about being in the country and not having service and things, I get it. I literally grew up in the country with grass and dirt all around me. And so, when I think about the glory behind my story, I could easily talk about childhood, and kind of like live in that space. And, of course, like any typical child, there was things that we go through adolescence, you have issues, you have concerns, puberty hits, all these different things, and you don't know who you are as a young person, and you're trying to find yourself, all those great things. But I will honestly say that I probably learned the most about myself when I hit my freshman year in college. And I remember one of my first African American studies classes, 101. My professor asked, she said, how many of you all know who Carter G. Woodson is? And I couldn't speak to that. And I didn't know who that was. And so I never ever, and even to this day, like ever wanted to be in a space where I didn't know something. And so for me, that was eye opening, because while I grew up in the country, I grew up with all the things I needed. Good education, on to college, all those things. There was still a piece of life that I was missing, and like a calling that I felt as though I was missing. And so, you know, just that experience and not having like that knowledge in that moment was eye-opening for me. And so I vowed to myself, like going forward at that point, that I would never be in a space or in a room with anyone and not be able to speak to what was going on currently in the world, or the things that me as a Black young lady at that moment and in that point in time that I should have known, so that I can, as we say, like reach one and you teach one, right? And so that was one of the things that just like sparked a fire inside of me to just do something greater. I felt like, because I was like, I grew up well. I enjoyed life as a child, but when I got to that adulthood piece, and I was like, I'm still missing something. That to me really, really inspired me and pushed me to go after really what I really felt as though I was already mine, essentially, and what I could give to kids who look like me. So fast forward a little bit, went on through college. I had my daughter, my oldest child right now, who is a student of mine also. I had her my sophomore year in college. And so that experience also like just really grounded me. It was no longer about me and the things that I wanted to do. And, it was about this young person that, we grew up together. I can be honest about that. And so, we grew up together. She has been through it all with me, honestly. And so her and her siblings, and so that, that has like the place where I'm at right now in life as a principal. I'm sitting currently in my office. I really owe to my children, I feel like, more than anything. And so, that story behind the glory is just that at the end of the day, I'm a mom, and I'm a mom who has not had everything given to her. But I also know what my children need to be successful in life. And so that has just, really, really grounded me. But, I grew up old school. I'm not going to put my parents' ages out there like that, but they're up there. And I appreciate that upbringing, because it shaped every way of like how I approached my students and how I approach my own children. And I view every one of my students like my own children. And so, like, it's just, none of this was by mistake, is kind of how I like to think about it. Like everything that has happened in every portion of my life and in every component has like added to who Julia is today at this point, and who many consider to be Principal Rich. And so, like, I often share stories about my upbringing and my background, and people are like, oh, wow. Like, well, how did you know you wanted to do this? A lot of the things that I'm doing right now, I saw a long time ago. I didn't know how I was going to I didn't always know how I was going to get there, but I knew that if I was leading, like I led with my heart and like with what I knew was right from the beginning, that it really wouldn't waver from, and I'm a living testimony of that, like I have led and believed in just doing what's right for the majority of my life. And I believe that that's why I am where I am today. So, yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Thank
Um,
y'all.
so I would say, that I would agree with a lot of things, or I can say that I can relate to a lot of things that you're speaking on, just in having this vision and this feeling like you're supposed to be doing something else or belong somewhere else, but you really can't explain it. And I
Right,
spent a lot of the time in my 20s explaining to trying to get people to understand. They're like, why aren't you happy? Like you have this, you're doing this, you're making moves, you're moving fast. And it's like, I just feel like I'm supposed to be doing
right,
more,
right,
and so
right,
I want you to speak to that feeling. Like
right,
when you're in high school and
right,
everybody, I was an athlete. So that was kind of like what was my vehicle, but almost like a distraction to life,
right,
to a certain extent, because I'm like you, it wasn't till after track season, in college, after um, going through a little bit of life and realize like, okay, track is over.
mhm,
What's next is when I found myself in a very dark space. But in
right,
that space is when I really discovered
mhm,
who I really was. It was no more track, as my mask. It was no more, it was like, okay, I've done the coaching. At first I thought that was part of my the whole coaching part. So I started coaching, and then it was like I was winning championships like they were like what you just did, so people would be like, wow, you won another championship. And I was like, yeah, but I didn't feel that satisfaction, I guess, only
right,
besides kids like advancing to the next level and getting scholarships. But I always felt I was in that space. I really didn't know who I was as a woman
right,
until my 30s or late
right,
20s is when I was like, oh, okay, wait. Now I know I'm supposed to be doing this other stuff. That's what it is. Don't know how much money it's going to make. Don't know what that journey is going to look like, but I know that's it. So I want you
right,
to speak more to that experience. Like when you said in your sophomore year in college, what
mhm,
was it during that time when you was like that light went off and it was like, this is what I know I'm supposed to be doing. Can't explain it,
right.
but how did you know, and what was it about that moment that you were like, I know for sure this is what I'm supposed to be doing?
Right, right. So, I actually had several moments when I felt like that. Let me just say, before I got to college, I wanted to be everything from a forensic scientist to a traveling performer to, so many other things outside of education. I had never considered that. And one of the reasons why I had never considered that is because when I was growing up, my experiences in school were not the best. Right. And so when I think about who it was that taught me in school, I didn't have a whole lot of teachers that looked like me. I definitely didn't have any teachers with locks, right? Locks or tattoos or different things like that. And so I had a hard time seeing that Black people were supposed to be in those positions. And so, I can honestly say that African American studies and dual majoring in that field really opened my eyes up to the need that we as Black folks had, it like the need that we had. And so I actually attended a PWI Old Dominion in Norfolk, Virginia, right down the street from NSU. And I remember very clearly a moment where I was sitting in Batten Arts and Letters, which is the building where most of my classes were housed. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, and when I say we, like we as Black folks, we're not really where we are supposed to be. And I thought about like, what are the things that we need to do? My professor had just assigned that day the Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. And when I started reading that book, number one, I cried because I said to myself, like, wow, there's a part in that book, and I'm going to paraphrase, of course, where he says, if you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. Like if there is no door at the back, he will create one for himself just because he knows that's his place where he needed to go. And there's a lot of my life where I felt like that, where I felt like I just did the things that I was doing because someone thought that that's what was appropriate for me, or what was just designed for my life because I was from a certain area, or I had this upbringing, or I had a child at this point. Like there was just so many different like boxes that were put around me that I felt like were just told for me to jump into, but not a true like, who are you, Julia, and what is it that you want to do in your life? And so as I began to like read this book, I felt internally a calling on my life in the sense of, I said, you know, okay, my first job, I was a lifeguard. I've always worked with children. I was a summer camp counselor working with children, like volunteer working with children, at church working with children. Like it always, every piece of work that I've done in my life has always surrounded children younger than me and developing them in some way, shape, or form. And so as I read that book, I just felt an extreme calling on my life to jump into education. And I said, you know, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to figure it out. So, you know, I went on, you know, graduated, did all the good things. And I said, okay, I have this degree now. What am I going to do with it? And I made the decision to go back and get my teacher, figure out all the stuff in the College of Education and get all my teacher certs and get everything figured out. And I chose to work in Norfolk Public Schools. I don't know if you know anything about Norfolk, but Norfolk is probably by far one of the most challenging places that I've worked in. But it opened my eyes up to where we were at that moment. And that was back in 2012, where we were as people. And I thought we had progressed a lot, right? I was like, I'm in college. I'm doing what, like, I'm making it do what it do. Like I had my the BSU Alliance on campus. Like us Black folk, we're educated. We got all these great things going on. But when I stepped foot into that classroom and I saw that I had 130 students and more than 60 of those students were identified as kids with special needs in the sense of IEPs or 504s, and they did not have what they needed in that moment to be successful, I was like, whoa. Like, this is how I was in my class. I sat back and I said, what is it that I need to do? What can I do as a person? And so I took all the texts and all the readings that I had done, and I said, okay, I'm not going to be that great at content this year. And this was my first year teaching. And I wasn't. I'll admit that. I was not that great at content. However, what I did tell myself was, I said, since I'm going to be okay at the content, what I know I can excel at and what I will do is I'm going to love on these babies every single day. And I'm going to show them the type of love that people who, you don't even have to be related to them. I'm going to show them that in an educational setting, and I'm going to see what it does. That year, I had 21% of students come to me having, like, back in Virginia, we refer to it as the SOLs, the standards of learning, very similar to the STAR assessment or the FSA in Florida. 51% of my kids passed that test that year, with IEPs, with 504 plans, with no sped teacher all year. First year teacher, 22 years old, didn't know what I was doing. And I remember my principal pulled me in, Dr. Stallings, and she said, what did you do? I said, Doc, I don't know what I did. All I did was just love them, and we had fun. And what that showed me in that moment was, and this was, and I speak about this because that was one of the biggest aha moments that I had. And I tell people this all the time. I share this with my teachers today, share this with my leadership team, that at the end of the day, no matter how much you know in content, no matter how good you can explain nouns, verbs, and all the great things, if you don't have a relationship and if you don't love the children in which you serve, you are not going to move anything. You're not going to move anything, because the picture is so much bigger than that, right? And so, fast forwarding through college and on to like my first year in that career in education, like I made up that mind that every single year I stepped foot into a building where I was serving children from underserved populations, I was going to always bring every ounce of love that I had to give them, just like with my kids, the children I gave birth to. And that has always been like my way of doing things, And so, like, to me, those are the aha moments when you really, like, when I saw what the current state of us Black folk, what it was, and I realized
what it really was.
Right. I've got to be a part of this solution, because it's not an option. Like, I feel so passionately about being Black and being a person of color and being a woman and all those different, like, and what that means. Like, I feel so passionately about that. The best place to be in for me, and this, I tell people this nowadays too, like, go into education,
Education.
especially if you love kids, especially if you love your people, especially if you feel like can't nobody do it better than you do. Like, why not? And for me, like, that's just something I hold on to every day, every single day. But yeah. And there's another part of miseducation of the Negro where, paraphrasing again, where he says something like, after a while, we won't even have to worry about like our oppressors doing the harm, right? We're going to be start doing the harm. And I said, no, that's not going to be me. It's just not going to happen. And I've just always carried that with me. So yeah, that's that.
I love it, sis. I
Man,
love it. I love it.
you putting down some good stuff. I'm gonna rewind because I've been seeing some trends. So we look
Right,
back at your upbringing, and something I wrote here is do it in spite. Like,
right,
yeah, that's where I came from, but I'm gonna succeed in spite. Then
right,
you got into college, had a child as a sophomore. That's when my son was born. I was a sophomore in college. I had a
right,
lot of people. He gonna be another one of those dropouts. A lot of people know I'm gonna do it in spite of what y'all
right,
think. And
right,
then I look at how you go into your first year, and I ain't gonna have the content, but I'm gonna do it in spite. I'm gonna
right,
love up on these kids. You always, when you, like you said, you didn't have that mind that you were gonna get into education, but it called you. It called you. I was an accounting major, then I was a graphic
hmm,
design major, then I was a psychology major. I had no desire to get into
right,
education. Now, I'm not in education, at the level that you and Dr. Hobson are, but I do a lot of collaborations, a lot of partnerships with
right,
schools. So it's got to be something that calls you. And like you said, you got to love kids. You got to love that young
right.
population. And you have to want to see them have a better life than we had.
That's right,
And when
right,
you put that in the forefront, everything else tends to take care of itself. So the
right.
people show up, the resources show up because
Absolutely.
most of the time they're not accustomed to seeing people pour in love at the level that you pour in, and they're like, you know what? We got to keep her around. So what can we put together? What
Right,
salary can we bring together to make sure that she don't
right,
go nowhere? And so many
right,
people, our last guest was talking about how you can do well for yourself financially as well in the education space. But so many people are caught up on worrying about the finances. They're not putting all their passion into their work to where the money will take care of itself.
right,
So
right.
I love those trends that I saw. I'm trying to see what else that I
Yeah.
wrote down here. But
And can I make a comment on
yes,
just on
please
that
do.
piece right there? I remember saying, and this is to anybody who's listening, that I remember saying I was going to be a career teacher. I remember that. And I had a student when I was a teacher who ended up um failed the 8th grade, and he went to another school and he got into some mess. Unfortunately ended up shooting and killing a friend of his, and he was incarcerated for a period of time. And I said to myself, I remember how angry I felt after that. And that was a shift that I made. I was a teacher, and I said, there's no way that I can be a teacher and have the heart for this work that I do and not be in a decision-making seat.
Mm,
And I said to myself, I would never have another child come into my classroom, come into my school, or any setting around Julia Rich and leave and not be set up for success. And so, like, to me, that was another like catalytic event that occurred that like shifted my mind. So yeah, to people who say, I'll always be a teacher. This is what my passion is. Like, you have to start considering, are you being best used in that capacity in that place? And the reality was that I was not, you know. And so it was important to me for the outcomes that I wanted for kids, especially Black and brown children, that I wanted for kids, for me to be in a seat that could change the trajectory of them, not just for like immediately right now, but for generations, right? And so, because education, I always tell my students, I tell them today, I told about 15 kids today. I tell them every day. I told them in the past. I told them when I was a teacher. Education is the one thing that can't nobody take from you. Once you get it, once you learn something new, it becomes a part of who you are. And every piece of something that you learn that's new should make you a better person and make you honestly put out like the great things into the world. And so like to me, though that's what's going to be like the game changer. And so, there's one thing, one place where I worked at, on the side of the building, it said no excuses. And so when you say in spite of, I kind of like think that to me kind of is synonymous with like there's no excuses. Like, yes, I'm a single mother right now. Yes. I have 560 kids here at school. Yes, like I mean, but there is not a reason why we can't do the things that we know we are put on this earth to do. And that's just how I approach life. And of course it has its flaws at times. Of course it has days where it's tough. But I said this last week when I had a general meeting with principals, and somebody paused me and they said, "Oh, Rich, you got to remember though." And I said, "What is it that I got to remember? Teach me something." And they said, "You built different." And I said, "You know what? You're right. I am built different. I've always been built different." And that's not to like stroke my ego or any of that, but you also got to walk in who you are.
Yeah.
And yeah, right? Like you
Yeah.
got to walk in who you are as
Hmm.
a person. And I don't even have to talk about myself because people see the
People do
work.
it for you. Hmm.
I don't have to
Hmm.
say a thing. People know when they come into my building every day. They know who love these children. They know, and and it's not just about me, but they know, oh, the principal, she don't just sit in her office. No, I'm out there with the kids. And that's just how it is. But because I love them. And I love them because I didn't have a teacher that looked enough like me. I don't think I ever had a teacher say they loved me. I don't think I ever had a principal say they loved me. I don't think I ever had, an educators look at me and just honestly say, like, you know what, Julia, I see you. I see you
Yeah.
struggling over
Hmm.
there. And I want you to know that I'm here. I got you. I
Yeah.
never had anybody in education say that to me. And so
Hmm.
one of the like my mottos that I think of and I live by is like, be the coach that you never had, be the friend that you never had, be the principal that you never had, be the teacher that you never had. You know what I mean? And so like that
Hmm.
is how I approach things. And so, we have too many people nowadays that's in education. When you said pay, that's a trigger for me. And I'll
Hmm.
be honest about that because if people go into this work
For the
for the
money,
check, you will never be satisfied.
and
There's not a day that
we
you
will
will say,
continue the cycle.
there's never a day. There's never a
Hmm.
day that you'll be satisfied. And on top of that, if you do not have a personal investment in the population in which you serve, kids are not going to get what they deserve. And like even right now, I was just having a conversation with Dr. House and kind of before we started, like I'm new to Denver. Denver looks very different from any place I've ever been, but I live smack dab in the community where my kids are. When I go to Wendy's, when I go to Pizza Hut, or when I go all these various places, my kids, they see me and they light up. They're like, wow, we never had a principal that comes and patronizes our business. Like, yeah, that's me. They see me. And those things are important. Like those are the things that to me outside, like academics will come. And I strongly believe that. Academics will come, but relationship building has to be very intentional. And you have to want to do it. You have to want to do it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I know Brian's over there. When he started looking like that, he rather to say something. But I want to say to you that we share that same story. You know,
Right,
growing up in education, I knew that I wanted to be the teacher that I never had. I wanted to
right,
be the coach that I never had. So I remember going to this certain situation as a young head coach and changing from the beginning. Hey, people were saying, okay, she's gonna fail. She looked like one of the kids. Ain't no way she gonna be able to be no head coach. But I came in there with the intention of I need to make sure that these girls understand what it means to be a young Black woman. So
right, right,
I remember having study hall and them asking, Coach, what's the workout? And I would write something on the board, respect.
Right.
love, you know, and they were like, oh, you know, she preaching again? Yes, because I teach life first and I coach second.
That's right.
And I
Right.
just, you know, I truly believe that God covers that when you are in that servant position, because I
There it
remember
is.
sitting at a table where now it's time for me to explain to my white counterparts and my supervisors on why am I spending so much time talking about life and not coaching track.
Right.
But what
Right.
they realized was that, well, wait, she's winning.
Mm-hmm.
And when people, how'd you do it? How you do it? And in my head, it's simple. Show them love. Show them that you care, and they'll do anything in this world for you. And
Yes, they
people
will.
still have not took hold of that because they're still doing the same thing. And
Right.
everywhere I go, I get results. It's not because I'm special, it's because I love. I
Right.
love first. I want to know, you know, when people in my new position, when they were talking about, we want to give you the special population students. I said, well, what's the special population students? The
Mm-hmm.
students who aren't checking the boxes academically on the college level. They're on the verge of dropping out. Oh, give them to me. Give
Right.
them to
Right.
me. When everybody's
Right.
like, oh, you shouldn't be taking, oh man, that's going to be a lot of work. Man, them kids don't care. Them kids this, them kids that. And out of my 500 caseload that I had, I told myself, I'm going to meet with, if not 100, at least 80% of these students. I'm going
Right.
to find out where they're at. I'm
Right.
calling, I'm blowing them up. You know, where you at? Come to my office, come to my office. People like, you haven't taken lunch? No, you
Right.
know, and to the first thing these kids come in here and they like, okay, she gonna talk about why my GPA so low. She gonna talk about why I dropped, you know, my dropped the ball last semester. And the first thing I say is, tell me about you. What's your
That's right.
story?
Right.
And they looking like, and when you hear the stories of our young black men and women, you know, I've been raped. I've been, um, family has died, lost my brothers to trauma, dad died, mom died, you know, real life trauma issues that, how do you talk about academics when these students of ours are really dealing with
Mhm.
real life trauma? And if you can't speak to that, then you wasting your time, because
Right.
anything else that you talk about after that is irrelevant for them because it's not
Mhm.
important. So let me try to get you to the place where you can thrive and strive where you're at so that I can
Right.
see where we need you to go.
Right.
But we have to start with the root. And so I love, you know, when you speak on that, because I'm the same way, the way I
Right.
coach, the way I teach, I'm the same. You know, we have to, I tell people all the time, I'm not the example. I don't lead by example because I am the example.
That's
When
right.
you see a black woman dressed up, it's going to be me.
Mhm.
When you see how a black woman's supposed to speak to somebody else, it's going to be me.
Right.
When you see someone that's going to show you love, it's going to be through me.
Right.
I'm the
Right.
example. I don't need to lead by example because every day I wake up with the intention of, if you're not where I feel like you need to be, then I'm not successful. The doctor wasn't for me. It was for
Right.
them to say, hey, I was also a student that struggled in reading.
Right.
But look what I did. I found out how to learn. I found out what I need to do to get where I need to be. Oh man, you know, that speaks life to people, and that's what we're supposed to be doing in education. But I love that you spoke to how we can continue to sit in this space and talk about what we're not doing. And I think me
Mhm.
and Brian, a while back, we spoke on, I was telling him how disheartening it was for me to sit in like arts, right? And
Mhm.
look at IEPs, and I'm like, it's all the black kids in
Yeah.
here.
Yes.
All these black kids in here. And I just
Right.
realized that the conversation was, Johnny is hyper, but Jermaine uh, has something going on, and we think we need to put him in another room. I'm like,
Right.
well, why he can't be hyper? You know, and so when
Right.
I started to question those things, it was like that was the thing that continued to keep me in education, because we do
Mhm.
look at, I want to make more money, so what else can I do? I want to make more money, but what else can I do? But everything else that you're doing or going to do is not going to contribute to the system that we needed to contribute, because if we don't get
Right.
them now, we lose them.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so that was my conversation. That is what continues to throw me in where I can
Right.
say, oh, I have 17 years of education, because if I leave, that's one less person that's
It
going to
is.
make a difference. And
Right.
so if we
Right.
continue to strive in that space, and I want you to speak on just those moments that we do have when you know that, man, all this kid needs is love,
Right.
that's free.
Right.
It may take a little bit of time, you
Right.
know. They may come in there and talk to your head off until, for 30 minutes when you really got to get somewhere else, but you just like, they just need to talk. It just takes time, and that's free. But the reward that you get, you feel so rich. My friends take
Right.
vacations, but I feel rich in my life. I feel wealthy in my life because of the lives that I've changed.
Right.
So I'm
Right.
a billionaire. Now,
Right.
I need my bank account. If it would reflect that, it'd be great. But
That's
when
it.
it comes to the relationships that I have and I have built, I've learned so much about who I am just through teaching them who they
Exactly.
should be and how they should act. So I want you to talk or speak to that space when you're continuing to grind, you're continuing to pour, and you're just like, you looking around and everybody's like, all right, Miss Rich, bye. It's 4 o'clock. And you look at your watch and now it's 5, now it's 6, now it's 7. And you trying to figure out, damn, I could leave too,
Right.
because I got some things that I would need to do.
Right.
But I got this kid coming in tomorrow. I got to make this one more phone call. I got to
Right.
make,
Right.
I got to write up this one more email. What are you doing during that time to stay the course when you see everything around you moving and shaking and so many moving parts, but you know that your calling is right where you're at right now? How do you,
Right.
what are you saying to yourself during those times when you're having to choose between staying and leaving?
Julia, you are the best person for this job. You are the best person for this job. And if they don't have you, they are not they are not going to be where they need to be. I put that on myself. And I get emotional about it because we're in a state right now in education where people are fleeing. I mean, they are running from the classroom, running
Burned
from
out.
children who don't look like them, children. I mean, they're just running and they're leaving. And I often even ask myself this, Doc. I say, what is it where's my preservation coming from? Because it's some days where I don't leave this building until 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. When I was a teacher, 9 o'clock, making copies for the next day, making sure I was prepared. And at the end of the day, what it boils down to is that I need to do this work. This work is fulfilling to me. There is a part of me, and I haven't even identified it all yet, but there is a part of who I am at the core of me that absolutely has to be in service of other people, and especially children. And so, in those moments when I'm here, I often tell myself that the result is going to be so much greater, because the trade off is this: if I don't put into, or as a classroom teacher in any part of my career where I've been, whether it be a teacher, a content lead, AP, principal, if I don't put the work in, the outcome could be detrimental, and it could set someone back whom I might not know immediately, like the consequences of that, but it could it's going to happen, right? And so, like, when we have children that others have washed their hands of and they don't want to work with them and X and Y. I have one right now whom I love with with my whole heart. And that child loves me too, because he know I would move a mountain for him. But his previous experience, people don't even know that about him because they didn't give him a chance. And so what I said to myself was, it's either I do this work or I see him on the news, or I see him like my other student that I had some years ago who, you know, is in a situation where it just changes their life so drastically. And so, like, to me, if, like you said, and I love that you said this, love is free. It absolutely is. But a big part of it is, though, is that you got to love yourself first. Because
Enough.
I would tell people this all the time. Those teachers who you see go into a building and who just sit there, show up, just do the bare minimum. They talk bad about the kids. I mean, you know, and it doesn't even have to be that extreme. It could boil all the way down to, I'm not even gonna do my lesson plans because I don't feel like it. There's something that happened internally first to where they project that onto children. And so you have got to be at a space where you are mentally sound and where you are sound in your heart, because you can't love on somebody else's child if you don't love yourself. You can't sit here at work and not complain if you don't love yourself, because this work has to be fulfilling for you. I do this work because I love myself and I love my students and I love, you know, I just love people, you know, and you just have to be grounded in that. It's something I was, when you were talking, I wrote this down, and to me, it is important that we anchor in the fact that, like, especially in the principal seat, you have to have an unwavering belief in the potential of kids. And you also have to have that belief in the people whom you work side by side with as well.
Because
And
you have to have enough for those that don't have enough for themselves.
that's right. That's
Mhm.
right. And one of the things that I tell myself in the midst of resignations, in the midst of, you know, certain things going on, is that the right people will come. I am a firm believer in that. I am at this school in Denver, Colorado, and I never thought about Denver before last year. I am here because this is where I'm needed. And I anchor on to that. I anchor on to that every single day. You know, and everything is not always clear to me. However, you know, in those moments when I see people running out the building, you know, part of me, first of all, I'm thinking, well, I hope you prepare for tomorrow. You know, part of me is thinking that, but then the other part is like, this is obviously what they need right now in this moment. But for me, we have a different set of needs. And it just goes back to, I'm built just a little different, you know, and I'm a servant leader, you know, I'm just a servant leader. And I still find joy in this work. I find so much joy. Today I walked into my Lit 9 teacher's class, and he was teaching poetry and teaching specific literary devices. And I looked at his packet, and I saw that he was going to play Nas's song "I Can." And I said to myself, it was meant for me to walk into this class at this moment today. And I'm sitting there listening to the kids, and they're reading the lyrics right along with the song. And they're like, you know, they're starting to bop their head. They didn't know who Nas was, but, you know, then they start, you know, they get in the hang of the hook, and they're like, you know, I
Yeah.
know I can be
Mm-hmm.
what I want to be. If I work hard at it, I'll be where I want to
You're
be.
going to be,
And I'm like,
yeah.
I remember being a teacher and just
Yeah.
doing that and just
Mm-hmm.
playing that, and just every child that I see myself in. I see myself in them. And I just think to myself, my goodness, if we had more educators who just came into a building or came into this profession and they truly did it because it was what they needed to do, and they really honestly wanted to see the results and see the positive, like the positive outcome. And again, like the impact for generations, like education would, I mean, this is nothing we can't do, you know, and that's just the belief that we just need to have, you know, that we just need to have. And yeah, it's still fun for me, you know. I for some reason I get a kick out of sitting in my office and like creating documents and sending emails and getting a plan, you know, after school. I'm rarely in here during the day, but to me it just brings me joy. It just brings me joy. I taught a class yesterday. Didn't even know I was going to teach that class. I was an English teacher, but I walked in and just, you know, I saw the need because there was a sub in there, and I just started teaching. And I left feeling so full. to look around and see the kids just looking at me and they're excited and they're like, you see these little light bulbs going off and they're just, you know, immersed in content and not just the book content, but like the other parts of life that you teach them while you're teaching too. Like that's what drives me. That's what drives me. And like I said, my baby, my own child is going to graduate from a high school that I lead at. And to me, that's just like that is one of the that is a fulfilling experience. Because I check with her every day. Did I do a good job today? Did you see anything in the school that could have been better? And she tells me, she's so honest with me. And she tells me because she knows like what I always strive to do. Always strive to be better than the day before. You know, and as an educator, like you have to be in a constant cycle of receiving feedback, implementing that feedback, and just desiring to get better. And I'm still young in this work. Like I'm still young. Like I got at least 10 more years in me, you know, at least that's how I feel today. Let me just say that. But
I
that's
need to meet Miss Rich in 10 years because I know you're going to be like, girl,
right,
girl, you don't believe what I'm doing now.
right.
That's amazing.
But
That's
yeah, it's
amazing.
fun. You gotta have fun with it. You gotta
Mhm.
have fun with it.
Man, we have some great guests that are passionate about what they do, but just some of the things that you were saying earlier, like I don't know if y'all could see it, but my eyes were starting to sweat a little bit. Yeah.
I've been with him long enough that when I see him, when he started shifting, I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, we don't see that passion. We don't see it enough.
Yeah,
And when you know you have it in yourself, but then you see it in somebody else too, like you can't help but get emotional because these kids they need that. And
and they
when you
deserve it.
yes, and that's the thing. Like so many, like literally, like I pulled up the local school district, and I'm filling out an application right now for a behavioral health interventionist assistant teacher because I love that population. And I spoke with the coordinator of my master's program a few months back. And I'm like, look, I got to get back around the kids. Like I got
Right,
to.
right.
And the thing is, like so many, I was speaking at a school about 4 or 5 years ago, actually about 6 years ago now. Um, and it was my high school. I went in, just speaking and just touching base, seeing how everything going. I was really trying to do some interviews, some informal interviews, try to put together a potential mentoring program. And I was talking to their behavioral interventionists, and I said, like, we got to look at these kids' behaviors through a trauma focused lens. And he looked at me like I was speaking
Amen.
Chinese. Like he didn't know what that meant. And I'm like, seriously? That's why these kids are going straight to prison because y'all don't know
Right,
how to address their issues
right.
and y'all throwing them out there on the streets. They're giving up because you don't believe in them. You got to have someone that can sit there and, you know what? I don't have the content, but I'm going to love up on you.
That's
And
it.
when you love up on them, you learn what's really going on. And then you know what content to put in place. And I
Right.
see that in Miss and Principal Julia, man, what time is it?
Look,
Yeah,
I'm good. I'm good on time as long as y'all will have me because you know what, and I just gotta say this because what you just said just sparked like that school to prison pipeline. First of all the terms that you hear people throwing around, all these things Black folk that struggled with since way,
oh yeah,
way back 19. You know what I'm saying?
oh yeah,
Long time ago. Now they've coined all these terms where
make it
we
sound
have to
good.
like right where we have to but we've been known because that's why at one point when you had someone who you knew your mama in the classroom, you weren't gonna cut up in class, or that person knew what y'all were going through at home. They would, whatever the situation was, they would take care of you.
Exactly.
And you're right. Like we've lost sight of that as a whole. My goal is to have a school where that is always at the forefront,
We
you
love
know,
it.
and you just have to.
You
But
have
that
to.
school to prison pipeline is real.
Yeah.
They assess kids in elementary school in some places to determine how many prisons they need to build
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
based off reading and math scores. But you already know that Black children might come in a certain,
Mhm.
at a certain disadvantage because of X, Y, and Z. So
Mhm.
then, the education system just wasn't originally designed for us,
No.
Mm,
you
No.
know. And so that's why when you have people who are in positions of power to make decisions that impact kids and families and generations, you have to do what's right. That
Yeah.
is that is a responsibility of yours.
Of yours. Yeah,
That
that's
is
your
a responsibility.
responsibility.
That is you owe that.
Mhm.
This is not just for you to sit up in your office and look pretty and just
Mm-mm.
come out here and there for a photo opportunity. You need to do the work.
Yeah.
And the work starts with, do you value who you serve?
Hmm.
And if you do not value who you serve, then you need to get up out there
get up
because
out
you're
of there.
wasting everybody's time
Everybody's time.
Doing
and
more
you're
harm
setting
than good.
children back.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I just appreciate that. I thank y'all for interpreting my responses, because sometimes I know I can go, because I feel so passionately about it. And I
Yeah.
think one of my APs is on here, but I mean, she's phenomenal as well. And like, I just like, they can tell you, like, if Rich started talking about something, I'm gonna keep going, and I'm gonna go from
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
to there to there to there. But everything
Mhm.
I'm saying is legit.
And it circles back
Mhm.
to one thing, and that's
It
about the
does.
kids.
At the end of the day.
Mhm.
And in any setting, whether it's Houston or Mississippi or California or wherever else, principals need to get to a point where they're not willing to settle just to keep bodies in the building.
Yeah.
Because if you gonna come in here and talk crazy to kids, or you not gonna do what you're supposed to do, then this not the place for you.
Right.
And I have an unwavering belief in the potential of children, especially black and brown kids,
Oh yeah.
especially
We
because
love
we
it.
know they are still underperforming when it comes to and not because they want to, or not because they're not
Not
capable,
because they
it's
can't.
because the system is not serving them right. And so
Absolutely.
we still got work to do.
Mhm.
That's why I say I might got, I feel like I got another 10 years in me,
Yeah.
you know, because I need people to see what this work look like. And I know there are great people doing things all over the place.
Yeah.
I know that. It is still happening though in silos or in pockets, or where we have certain successful organizations or schools, like they get, but and it's not like transferable or translated to other places.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so we just need to do a more intentional job of
Yes.
what it looks like
Just being
to
intentional.
truly,
Period.
because it's not just about culturally relevant pedagogy or culturally
Mhm.
relevant teaching.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's not just about that. It's about, do you know the population that you serve, and do you want to do the work
Mhm. This
that
is
is going
work.
to get them
Mhm.
where they got to be? And I
Yeah.
just, I feel passionately about it.
Yeah.
I just love this. Like, I love this work. Like, I love it. Like, I have to do it. I have to do it. I wake
It's
up and I'm
easy.
tired every morning. But I once I hit this door, I'm like, all right, it's go time.
Yeah.
You know,
That's how
that's
it's
I
gotta be.
love it. I
right.
love it. And
It's
that's
gonna
why
be
we
easy
created
now.
that. Yeah. And that's what we were talking about earlier, Rich, before we got on, with the same conversation we're having right now, Brian and I used to have it on the phone, you
Mm,
know, and we was just like, man, but why not? Like, why not me? And so
right.
we knew that if we wanted true change within our community, if we wanted to change the perspective of young Black men, then it has to be us. We have to create that space. And so that's why we created, Hobson and Street Business Associates, because we knew that we got to bring something different to the school system. And him being on the outside of social work and me being in education, and I know the conversations that are happening. I've worked in elementary, I've worked in high school, I've worked in middle school, I've worked in college, athletics, you know, academics. I've been in all these meetings and for the last 17 years. And so I know, and the story has never changed. Every time you go to a school, it's the same story over and over and over. And at some point, you have a choice to make. You can contribute
Yeah.
or you can change. And
Right.
if they don't want to change where you're at, then you have to create the change. And that's why we created the organization that we have now, where we
Right.
go to different schools and we do professional developments to our leaders, our teachers, on what are the right questions to ask.
Hmm.
How are you supposed to be approaching your kids? How do you make sure they get the information, the content, but make sure that it's holistic? Where how do we reach our students in a different way, not the traditional way, and still
Right.
get the same result? How do we speak to those kids? How are we allowing students to have enough, um, giving students their safe place to be able to say who they are and to ask questions, because in our community it's, hey, you talking too much, shut up,
Hmm.
you're
Yeah.
asking too many questions, why are you touching stuff?
Right.
We
Right.
don't allow them enough to explore and to see and to ask. I was one
Right.
of those that always ask. I still ask questions. Everybody be like, would you stop talking so much? But it's
No.
because
Valid.
I wanted to know.
Right.
And I
Right.
drive downtown in Houston, and some people know this about me, but some don't. But I drive around in Houston and I usually park my car, and I'll park it somewhere, and I would just see young Black men and women
Hmm.
walking around, strung out, laying in the street, fighting each other, trying to figure out how to get the next hit. And all I can think about is, what if they just had that one person?
Yeah.
If they just had that one person that could have said that one thing,
Right.
could have
Right.
changed their entire life.
Right.
So it's
Right.
personal to me. I remember coming home and crying and being upset, and my dad would say, well, you can't take that stuff so personal. But it is personal.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
personal for me.
Right.
If you don't make it, it's personal for me. Because
Right.
what could I've said or done a little bit different that maybe would have changed? Now, some things we can't change everything, but if even in your wrong decision making, if you can still come back and say, but I remember what Dr. Hobson told me, even though I made a wrong turn and I made the wrong decision, she did tell me. So I made it a responsibility of mine that every student, every person that I see, that I need to continue to sow. Even when I was sowing from empty places, God was giving me just a little bit to give for that
That's
one. And I'm like, okay, I just gave you it. Now I'm back on E again. But
right.
somehow when the next person came in, I had a little more to give. And
Right.
somebody else
Right.
came in and I had a little more to give. And so
Yeah.
I just love that you are in that leadership position, because a lot of times our leaders forget their why. They
Oh no.
forget, why are you doing the things that you're
Right.
doing? But you're going to attract, like you said, the right people, because you have
Yeah.
no choice to step it up if they're going to be work around you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you ain't trying to look like an outcast, so you can't be the person that, slacking off and rich is off the
Right.
chain. I mean,
Right.
so
Right.
people are going to either step up to the standards and the expectations that you are modeling, or
Hmm.
they will leave. And if they leave, it's okay, because the rumor is going to
Okay with
be,
it.
Principal Rich, if you go to her school, you're gonna have to be ready to work, because she's
Right.
not taking no pajama
Right.
pants and slippers. You know what I'm
No.
saying? And
Oh
and
no.
that's what you have to
Right.
be, and be consistent. So thank you for
Right.
just being you in your leadership role and loving yourself enough to love others, because I think that it's not just the students that miss out. We're forgetting about the people who serve those students. We got to make sure that those teachers are continuing to be loved and know that, hey, you matter,
Right. Right.
right? We forget
Yeah.
about that part. And that's why within um, our program that we have, we teach that. How does the teachers get back to their loving themselves, knowing who they are and their
Right.
full potential, so that they can make sure that the students that they serve can reach their full potential? Because if you don't know who you are, how do you teach somebody else?
Exactly. Exactly. You can't. You
And you
can't
don't
because
have
you
to
have
know
to
it
be.
all. And I love that you said that. You said you're still trying to figure out some other things, and that's okay. It's the people that think that they're already where they're supposed to be are the ones that are not serving our kids and making the change. It's when you're
Right.
constantly like, man, there's more.
Right. Right.
There's more.
Right.
So I love that, and thank you for doing that. Um, Brian, go ahead.
I appreciate it. Thank
Man,
you.
I want to like go to Denver and sit down and
Y'all
have
are welcome. Come on,
a
please.
strategy
Look,
session.
you just don't know. You'll be like, y'all came for real? Oh yes, we are
Oh,
in the building.
but see, look, anybody will tell you, and I know I have some friends on here right now. When Rich say something, Rich is really serious. Like, come on, because one thing that I think that we need to do more of is sit down and have these conversations. Is sit down and have these conversations, but engage multiple people in them. And so you all are more than welcome to come on out here, KIPP Northeast Denver Leadership Academy. We can, I mean, please, whenever y'all have a moment, I would love, 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 love to welcome y'all. And I would love for y'all to meet our kids.
For
They
Yeah.
are
sure.
they are phenomenal. I would love for y'all to do that. That would be great. This has been a wonderful opportunity.
Yes.
Um, I speak. Look,
Like
I told you I had
he said she ain't lying, huh? She is speaking. Well, that's what we need. That's exactly what we need. Because we will
so
come.
like yes, yeah. I mean, I really we'll have to set that up. But
We will.
For sure.
this has been a wonderful opportunity. And when I say that, just in the lens of like to tell people my story and just like my fast track to leadership. Like I've had a fast track to leadership, right? Like, typically in public school, you see 15, 20 years before someone becomes a principal. But I'm a firm believer that God knows who needs to do that work.
Hmm.
And I really believe that that's why I am where I am today. And I'm proud of that. Like there is still much work to be done. There is still much work to be done. And yeah, there is. Can I shout out a few friends of mine, if you don't mind?
Man,
Absolutely.
shout
Yes, you
them
Who
out.
I
can.
who I know are on the call. Um, I'm just gonna say names. It means a lot to me because I just want to preface this and say one of the things that has also helped sustain me has been people who are like minded, like me, and then also who love me enough to say like, hey, come on, like let's take a break from it because you're right, like we will work ourselves. And so I want to shout out, I see Mike is on here. We also have a business that we are working on fully developing and should be able to be like fully rolled out with sometime within the summer of 2023. We're called Begin Again, and is very similar to the work that you all are doing in the sense of, how do we equip people in schools to not only like to just start over again. A lot of us are not serving our children. And so there has to be a very methodical approach to that in which, you analyze data. If you're not looking at data, I don't know what people are doing. You know what I mean? And so that's what we are working on. And again, like I said, that'll be fully flushed out in 23. I want to shout out my AP who is on the line, who is she's like a sister to me, who you don't often have people who are willing to move with you, if that makes sense. And her name is Kia. I love her so much. Uh, but she was in Texas for a very long time. Met her last year. We worked together at a turnaround school, and I told her late last year, I said, "You coming to Denver with me? You just don't know it yet." And she also is a pioneer in this work and just so passionate about it. And her and her boys moved out here, and we are leading this school together,
You just
which is
need
like
one rider.
I'm telling you. And when I say, like, I mean, she is like my right hand woman. She is amazing. Um, I have another one. I'm assuming, I don't know, maybe he can drop something in the chat. I don't know. Terry, I mean, like that is one. Oh my goodness. I like to say my honey bun, but I will keep it. Uh, when I
How do
tell
you
you
spell that name? How do you spell that?
which one, Unikia?
The last one.
Oh, Terry, Terry.
Got it.
Yeah, yeah. When I tell you, like last year was rough. It was a rough year. That year after the pandemic was rough. And when I say, whew, I came home like, with some punches, like in the sense of like just sounding off about school, just going off. And when I say like just a support, just a great person to have in my corner, and I just am so appreciative. Um, my best friend is on the line as well. I mean, my rider since college, so she knows how I feel about everything. And I feel like I'm gonna miss somebody, but another great friend of mine, just who's also in Houston, working for an organization, the organization that you said, Doc, you were interested in, and yeah, like just have some really solid people. Like my circle is so solid. And I mean, when you're in this work and you're in it, like boots on the ground, like in the trenches, like you need people like that. Like you just need people like that. And so I'm grateful for them. I believe my parents might be tuned in. I mean, I know technology might be a bit of a concern for my parents. They're in the country too. But like when I tell you, like when I talk about my upbringing, like if it wasn't for my parents, um, there would be no me right now. And so I'm so thankful for them. I can call them at we have a 2-hour difference now. I can call them at any time of day, talk to them about my day, and they are just there to listen. And so like that's just what we need in life. And I'm just grateful. Like I'm extremely blessed and always blessed. My 15-year-old, I know she's not on here, but that is my baby. Like she is going to be the one that she's already broken curses that I didn't have the skill set to do. And I get emotional about it because she's doing things that
She
I
said, I'm
know.
here.
She's doing things that I know I wouldn't be able to do. And like she is so determined. um and I learned so much. Like you can learn so much from kids. So yeah, I appreciate y'all.
No,
I really do. I
we
really
definitely
do.
appreciate you. And I didn't know. I mean, I don't know. It's like when I'm looking for guests and I'll shoot them over, and it's like I don't know if it's just a gift or something, but
It's
it's
a
like when
gift.
it
It
has to be
is.
something, because it's like all I would get is like a picture, and I'd be like, there's a little bit more. There's a, we get these little innocent little bio pictures, and like, oh, okay, she seems sweet, and then you get on here and be like, let me tell you, if you're not getting, if you can't take it, get on out of here,
Right.
But
Right.
that's what we need, and that's why we create this space, because if you don't speak on it, people don't know,
Right.
you know.
Right.
If we just
Right.
continue to have these phone conversations on the way home from work about what the issue and the problem is, we're going to continue to have this cycle. And I just, yeah, you've only touched the surface of what you're going to be
Right.
doing. And
Right.
it's so amazing. And we just need to do more, like you were saying earlier, of collaborating, partnerships.
Right.
We come across a lot of people where we have ways of making a change, and we just have to be more consistent and more intentional with the things that we're doing. And so thank you for just being you. Thank
I
you for being
appreciate it.
um
A
being
real
you,
blend.
just being you,
Oh yeah, I'm gonna keep it
like,
100.
yeah, like I was expecting, like, the shortcut, and you was like, I got locks. Like, I'm like, I need my
Oh,
nails back. I'm like feeling real bad about my
oh,
hands right
oh,
now. Like, I'm like, okay, so if I knew she was gonna come on here and, look rich,
oh yeah.
living her best life.
Right. Right.
But we
I'm
just
telling
thank
you,
you
like
for
the kids will
that.
tell you how they see me. Like they get the real. They
And
get
that's
the
what they
real.
need. That's what they
Right.
need. They need to be
Right.
able to see themselves now and in the future, right,
Right.
in one person. And so thank you for being an exceptional leader,
Thank you.
mother,
I appreciate that.
woman, and just sister to sister. I just truly, truly appreciate the work that you're doing, because I know it's not easy.
Right. I
And
thank
so
you.
I
Thank you.
thank
I
you
appreciate
for
that.
continuing to stay obedient and stay the course, because we need you there.
Right. Right. Yeah. I always tell people I'm not going nowhere until something happens out, it's out of my control, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm determined that, like I said, there's still work to be done.
So
So
real.
I appreciate you all. Thank you all for this opportunity. This has been my first time doing something of this sort, not my first podcast, but my first time really truly um, speaking about this work that I do. And this is an extreme passion of mine. So I thank you all for seeking me out and having conversations with me and giving me this opportunity. It's been a true blessing. Yeah, and I look forward to meeting y'all in person and
Oh yeah.
seeing where this can go and the possibilities. I thank y'all.
Thank you so much.
And
We're
my
gonna
mama said she just texted me and said she was on here, but mama scared to type in YouTube. I love you,
Well, we
mama.
love you, Mama, and thank you for letting us have your daughter. She's amazing. She's amazing.
Yes.
Mom is over there probably just like,
Right. I know
My
she
you know,
girl.
cheesing. I'm gonna call her after I get off. I know she over there just a cheesing, sitting she probably rolling her hair up. So let me go
yeah,
ahead and put her
you
bonnet on
already
for the moment.
know.
Yeah.
My mom, I can always count on my mom to be on the show, and she'll say, "Oh, first thing she may say is, 'Oh, red lipstick.'" I'd be like, "Well, she's not talking about nothing about the show. She says, 'What was wrong with your hair?'" I'd be like, "So did you like the show?" But you need those people in your life that are going to tell you the truth because that's how we grow. But there's no better support, and it's a blessing to have your parents support you because we know that there's a lot of young men and women who don't have that support at home.
Right.
So it's definitely a blessing. So.
Exactly.
Um, Thank you,
Exactly.
Mama, for letting us have your daughter, and she's amazing. And she probably like, I know,
Yeah,
well, her role
she
is
just
set.
texted me and said she sure is rolling her hair up. So it's
Well, her role is set.
right, right. Well, I
But thank
appreciate y'all
you so
again. Thank
much.
you. Absolutely.
All right. So we're gonna put you backstage real quick. Close out the show. Then we're gonna come and close out with you.
All right, awesome. I'll be waiting for y'all. Thank everybody for tuning in. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. And I'll see y'all too shortly.
Yep.
Well, she said we don't really have to say nothing, but it's just such amazing. It's good to know that we still have people in education that are teaching and living with intention, um, and she's amazing. And so I definitely look forward to um, partnerships and
Yeah.
collaborations and how can we continue to do the things that we know we are called to do. So shout out to Principal Rich for her richness and her
Yes.
knowledge and her love.
She got the right
Truly,
last
truly
name.
appreciate it. My eyes were like, I was like, Sherelle, don't have a breakdown. Don't break down during this show. If in a couple of things she said, I was like, ooh, I'm not doing it. I'm not about to have the ugly face today. Not gonna do it. But such a blessing. Such a blessing.
Well, as Dr. Hobson mentioned a little while ago, it must just be a talent to be pulling in the best of them. So y'all stay tuned. We're gonna keep them coming. Keep an eye out on social medias. Just actually, if you haven't subscribed to our mailing list yet, go to our website, brhsba.com, and you can subscribe there. And just make sure you stay in the know. You guys know what's going on with us, know what value we have to offer, and how we can potentially add value to what you got going on, to your school, your organization, whatever it may be. But off that note, this has been another one. We thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back here, same time, same place, coming up real soon. Y'all have a good